Hello, Steve.
Hello, Layla.
How are you? Did you do a little jiggle? I always do.
I did. Jiggle. I was tapping my feet along.
Yes. Yeah. I go through that and I'm like, I'll just sit here and dance. You can't see it because I can see you. If you were doing the whole fingers, I would have seen that.
I did.
But yeah, I do quite a little bit of a jiggle, jiggle, jiggle. And so that's always good fun. And I just realized that I didn't pop you in the guest thing. So I'm going to just do that now. Oh. And let me have a quick do. It takes me about 5 seconds to do, and I'm almost done. Here we go. Do save, and then I can go exclamation guest, and hopefully it's going to bring you up. And it did.
Yay!
Hurrah! So that's a quick overview. But Steve, why don't you tell us in your own words? Not that that isn't your own words because you gave it to me, but tell us a little bit about you.
About me. Okay, so I'm Steve Collins, as you guessed by now. I'm a freelance developer. Been developing, well, since I was about 14, so many years ago. Professionally, I've been doing this about 25 plus years, something like that. Heavily into sort of .NET. I've been co-hosting Milton Keynes.net with Layla, but she's abandoned me. She's too busy. She's left me on my time. Been speaking at DDD conferences, spoke at NDC London. So that's me. I tweet at Steve Talks Code, and I have a blog at Steve Talks Code.
Oh, that's lovely and concise. Thank you. I must say, you have been an absolute godsend the past year, more. When did you join me on the?
I think it was about April. When did Shahid jump ship?
Yeah, that was about March, I think.
Yeah. So I think
he abandoned us.
Well, going to the other side of the world, I think can sort of kind of let him off.
I don't know. I don't feel inclined to let him off, Steve. But you have to let me off.
I live nowhere near Milton Keynes.
No.
I live 2.5 hours away.
Yeah. So when we aren't virtual anymore, Well, that's going to be a little bit of a journey for you, isn't it, Steve?
Yes. I've been talking to our mutual friend Ed about sort of how we're going to split up virtual and real world things, and I might make the odd guest appearance in Milton Keynes, but we might sort of be splitting it, that I do the virtual ones and he does the physical ones, or to be decided, I think, as they say.
Yes. Well, I feel like you are a proper member of the miltonkeynes.net. You know, I don't care that you live all the way across the way. Thindle is here, and I was just about to say, I feel like Thindle is a member of mk.net, even though he lives even further away than you, all the way in Sweden.
Oh my gosh. Now that would be a round trip commute.
Yeah, I don't think Thindle can come and help. Maybe virtual Thindle could help, but yeah, not in person.
Right.
I feel like that's one nice thing, I guess, about the past 2 years that we've been virtual, is that we have opened it up to a broader thing. But you know my feelings on that. Pros and cons.
Yes. So I mean, it's a weird one, because I went to DDD East Midlands at the end of last year, and that was the first in-person thing that I've been to for a long time. And I was speaking towards the end of the day, and I just hid in a room, because whilst I can rabbit away on virtually now, actually speaking to people in real life, it was people. so I hid in the speaker room for most of the day.
Yeah, I think I would, if I'd have gone, I decided not to go. I withdrew from that because I just wasn't comfortable going to places yet. I still haven't been anywhere in person yet. There's a meetup in Birmingham that keeps saying, we'll come and we'll pay for your travel and your overnight. And I'm like, I mean, it's only like 45 minutes to Birmingham for me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no.
Yeah. I think it's a weird one, because I mean, obviously Jess and Morton had sort of done all the precautions, wear masks when you're moving around, and everyone had to have their COVID proof of COVID vaccinations and everything. But it was quite odd, just sort of everyone wandering around in masks and everything. But after a couple of hours, it felt okay. Felt okay.
And did you recognize people with just their masks on?
Mostly, yes.
Or did they have to go, it's me, and pop it back on?
Yeah, so yeah, just recognizing from that bit in the hair, then recognize quite a few people.
I like Thindle's idea. We all need to go around in Zorbs. I could get behind that, because I'm quite accident prone. So being in a giant bubble would be quite good for me, and bounce around and
being a hamster going round and round and round and round.
Yeah, but we'd all be bouncing off each other and going, hi, in our Zorbs. I quite like that. I think that would be quite entertaining. So that would be good fun. But yeah, I don't know when I'm supposed to do my first in person. I actually think it's supposed to be Texas in April.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's Chicago in April and Texas in May. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, because NDC London was meant to be January, but it's now been pushed back to May now, I think. Yeah.
End of May, I think.
I think it's towards the end of May, yeah.
Very close to NDC Oslo. When's that? Have we even heard about that? Have I submitted? Is there Oslo?
No idea. I know NDC have been dropping the promo videos for London today. So I've seen Dylan pop up and Mark Rendell pop up, and
me.
I haven't seen a promo for you yet.
What?
No.
Outrageous. What about you? Have you had a promo?
I'm not speaking.
What?
I'm not speaking. I was rejected. I was rejected.
Oh, Steve.
No. But I am going.
Okay. Well, I will see you there.
I'll see you there.
I have session there?
Yes.
I have one session there. Yes, that's
Yeah.
it. Yes. I actually withdrew from all the Scandinavian ones. There was DevSum, then there was, I didn't want to go because they were like early on, and I didn't really want to go to any of those. And then I think there was the Techorama in Belgium I withdrew from because I wasn't sure I wanted to go. And then I was supposed to go to Summit in Glasgow, which was supposed to be this month, and then they pushed it back to June. But I'm going to be on holiday, hopefully, fingers crossed, in June. So we don't know. So yeah, I had to withdraw from that one. I mean, I'd submitted for those like DevSum and Techorama, but they hadn't. They're like, right, we're going to get our speakers sorted now. So if you can't come, let us know now before we pick you. So I was like, you know what? I'm not ready to go to that many, because the one in Chicago is a work one. It's our very first spring one tour of the year. So I kind of have to go. And I'm like, I'll go to that one, but all these other ones, I don't know. Have you been submitting to lots of in-persons?
Not internationally. So in-persons pre the times, I used to go to all the sort of DDDs. So there was Cambridge and East Midlands, Southwest down in Bristol, and Reading, the daddy of them all.
Yes.
So I in the before times, I was sort of jumping all over the place. In fact, I think the furthest one I went to was DDD North, which was Leeds.
Yeah.
And I think that was the February just before we all went into lockdown. So
I went to one in Hull.
That's it. It was Hull. That's right. It was Hull.
That's it.
Yeah, it was Hull, not Leeds.
And yeah, I went to that one, and that was good. Apart from it was bitterly cold. I remember walking around Hull University campus thinking, could it get any colder? Because like the rooms were off, and you had to go to the bit. I don't know. We were car park was miles away.
Oh yeah, you had to walk across the car park to go to one of the different speaker sessions.
Yeah, and it was so cold. And I remember the cafeteria was so overcrowded. I ended up staking out a claim in the hallway, and I'm rather partial to this. Is what I remember about DDD East Midlands North, was that I'm very partial to chocolate eclairs.
Mm-hmm.
So they had mini chocolate eclairs, and I was like, oh my goodness, my session went well. I'm going to have a mini chocolate eclair. Took a big bite of it, and the cream had gone off, and I was like, what?
Oh no! Oh no!
Yeah. So that's what I remember from.
So I think DDD North might be happening, but I'm not sure when. Because Reading was late last year. It was virtual again. But I think they're aiming to do DDD North in person, but I haven't seen anything lately.
Yeah, and actually, Thindle, DDD, this is confusing. Regularly, DDD stands for Domain Driven Design. This actually is developer, because it's a conference series. So it's Wiggity, you were asking what it stands for. It stands for developer, and it's a series of conferences that we have in the UK.
Well, it's around the world now, because I think they've got them in Australia.
They do have them in Australia. So personal and possibly stupid except for costs. Does the speaking engagement pay, or is it PR for you and the company you work for? This is quite an interesting topic, Steve.
Yes.
Because there is some contention around this. So generally, outside of North America, I would say no conferences pay for you as a speaker, but they will pay for your travel and accommodation. So that's what you get. The ones I have spoken at in America, there are some that will pay and some that won't actually pay a speaker fee. And that they sometimes will pay you a speaker fee and not pay your travel, but they'll give you hotel rooms. What's your experience been?
So the only proper paid conference I've spoken to was NDC London. That was 2020, and it was virtual that year. So all the others I've spoken have been community ones. So there's no fee, no travel. It's all DDDs and that. But it's very much about community. And the question was about sort of PR. It's a funny one because it sort of it goes around in a circle, because you found something, you want to tell the world about it, and you start on this treadmill of you start with lightning talks and user groups and then get up to a DDD, and then at a certain point you start getting the buzz of it. So then it is PR about yourself, because I want to do another one, and the adrenaline kicks in. But personally, it's a weird one because, believe it or not, I'm quite shy. I'm quite a shy person.
Aww.
And I've only been speaking since I think it was about 2018, 2019 maybe. And I started with Lightning Talk at .NET Southeast in Brighton. And it took me about 3 weeks of preparing just for a 10-minute Lightning Talk. And then once I'd done it and got that out of the way, I thought, oh, I could do this. And then the snowball started. And then it was submit to a DDD, did a DDD. Oh, I like this. Shall I submit to another one? And then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we have people like yourself who we all go, we're not worthy developer advocates.
I don't think that really applies. Because I started very much the same as you. I think I gave my first talk at Milton Keynes JavaScript meetup in 2016 or 2017, and I gave it on JavaScript templating, of all the things, would you believe? They were like, Layla, we don't have a speaker for our JavaScript meetup this month. And I was always the bossy person. The problem is I'm usually the only woman at all of these meetups. And so I don't know if I just, the mother hen in me, and I go to these meetups and I'm like, okay, right, everybody come on, sit in, we're ready to start. And Steve, I can be a little bit bossy.
No, I don't believe that at all.
So I was known enough by people, and I'd been to the very first. It was before I'd even got a job in developing that I'd went to the very first JavaScript meetup. So I knew the organizers, and I was quite chatty, and I was like, oh, I'll help. I liked being involved in the community, and so I did that. I did an hour talk on JavaScript templating, and that was the start of it. And then I just started doing some more after that. But we all start somewhere, and you never know where it will lead, because I was giving a talk on test-driven development at a meetup, and that's how I got approached about going into developer relations.
Because it was the test-driven development with the Terminator was the first time we met at ProgNet London.
ProgNet London. I was going to say that's where we first met. I
came bouncing up and went, that was a good talk.
That's one of my favorite talks, that one. I love that one. So this is interesting. Now I see that Thindle is saying that he too is shy and trying to force himself. Thindle has been doing some streaming of late and building. Thindle's got this excellent extension, Steve. It's basically built for me. Not that he built it for me, but it is perfect for me. It's a Visual Studio extension that hides all of your configuration. So when you open up your user secrets by accident, they're all hidden. It's amazing.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's called NoDocs, NoDoxx. Thindle, drop a link to your extension. It's fantastic. So even as a speaker, I just flashed all my configuration.
Yeah.
All right. So it does that for you. So Thindle's been doing this. So you were going to say you had some, when we were talking about beforehand, you were going to talk about how to get started as a speaker, because
Yeah.
you've started with lightning talks
Yeah.
and progressed. So you're a big advocate for lightning talk.
I mean, it's if you're shy, it's absolutely nerve-wracking because I mean, prior to that, I think the only public speaking I've done, I think I did a best man speech for my best mate, and other than that, I'd be running a mile from public speaking at all, tripping over my words, the sweat, the nerves, the constant running to see a man about a dog.
I know that one. It's the worst when you're at a conference and they've mic'd you up and you're like, I want to go to the bathroom now, please. And no, you're mic'd up, and it's like
so yeah. And Steve Gordon, who was running .NET Southeast, he was very much the same, that he wanted to get out of his comfort zone and sort of started with a lightning talk. And so he sort of gave me a few hints, what have you, about this is what you need to think about. But the only thing about lightning talks, in some ways, I'd say it's slightly more pressured than a full-blown hour-long talk, because you've got to hit your 15 minutes or 10 minutes. And if you've got a lot to say and like going off at tangents like I do, that's very hard. It's very hard to hit 10 minutes. So some people worried, oh, the tumbleweed's going to go, I'm going to dry up after 5 minutes. No, it's really hard to get it into 10 minutes. I mean, was that your experience?
I don't like giving lightning talks because I can't think of anything that I can only speak about for 10 minutes. So I spoke at .NET Front End Day last week, and it was a 25-minute talk, and I was like, but I have all these things I need to talk about. How am I going to squidge them down into 25 minutes?
Yeah. And even an hour talk, when I run through my slides and everything, sometimes it's about an hour and 20. So then I cut it down to an hour, because I know that the adrenaline means that when I'm actually speaking, I speak at such a fast rate that 1 hour will actually be about 52 minutes. I did a webinar for JetBrains about dependency injection.
Yeah.
And when I played back the comments on YouTube about 5 minutes in, so I went, slow down, mate, slow down.
I don't actually have that problem. Mine is usually I speak too slowly. And so I have to actually train myself to pick up the pace a little bit, or else I waffle. You know me, I waffle a lot, and I sort of like, yeah, and then you can do this, and I'm like, oh god, I check my time and I'm running behind. Speaking of Steve Gordon, I was at a conference in Poland with Steve, and he was going to give his talk on high performance.net.
Yep.
And so it was really, loads of people wanted to. They had a room there which could hold, I think, about 1,200, 1,500 people. Mega God. Stage at the end. So he said, come up with me, Layla, come see this stage, because he was doing his tech check. So I went down there and I stood on the stage. And the great thing about that was it was dark, so you can't see any of the people. And he's there with he's got all these sheets of paper. And I'm like, Steve, what are those? And he's like, oh, these are my timings. I went, you what?
Oh.
So he actually has the exact timings for each slide, so he knows exactly where he should be for each slide. I'm like,
he does it on an Excel spreadsheet, if I recall correctly.
I was flabbergasted that anyone would be. I thought I was organized, and then I was like, Steve takes it to a whole nother level. But it was quite funny. He was like, I'm really nervous. This stage was huge. You were like this. Like, if this was the screen, this box that we're in, you were like this big in front of, you were this tall. It was ginormous, and this sea of you know, seats in front of you. And I was like, I'm in one of the rooms that only seats 500. Ha ha ha. Get to my room that seats 500. It's like full daylight in there, so I can see every seat. And I'm like, oh, I think I'd rather be in Steve's epic room.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I was quite relieved when my NDC London was virtual, because I was thinking, oh my gosh, this could be terrified if I just see this sea of faces, all expecting, going, yeah, come on. Tell us what you can tell about. Are you going to get it wrong?
Oh God, that's the worst, isn't it? I hate the questions at the end. So I try to make sure that my talk goes right up to the very last minute, and then like, I'll take questions in the corridor. See ya.
Yeah. Oh, because I speak at such a fast rate, because of the adrenaline kicks in, I've usually got about sort of 5-6 minutes left. I go, are there any questions? And there's tumbleweeds, and I go, oh my gosh, either everyone's fallen asleep or I've bamboozled everyone with so much detail that everyone's going, oh no, I can't think of anything to ask now.
Yeah, that it can be overwhelming sometimes. I think when you're like, for me, I'm trying to digest all the information, and it won't be for like an hour until I have the questions.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me to come up with stuff immediately. You're really good. I know when we're hosting people, you've got all these awesome questions, and I'm like, I'm still processing.
That's because I've got Google in the background. That's the joy of being virtual. I was just thinking, what's that? I'll pretend to be sensible and ask a question about it.
Findle, drive home safely, and much love to you for Zelda there. So I think it is really scary giving in person. So where was your first in person? Do you remember that? Like, was it like at a conference, not a meetup?
So the first, I think it would have been DDD. It was either DDD Reading or DDD East Anglia was my first in person one. But I always seem to end up in afternoons, so I have a whole morning to go into panic mode about it.
Okay.
I would much rather sort of have a first thing in the morning. It's done and dusted. I can then go and watch everyone else's talks.
You know that you can say, please, may I have a session in the morning?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, Steve.
I said I'm shy. I'm too shy.
Every time I go through and they're like, okay, you've been accepted. Great, thanks. Can I have one on the Tuesday, first thing in the morning, please?
Yeah.
I'm very particular.
Yeah.
And that's not like just because I've been doing it a long while. It's like, yeah. I can't attend any sessions really before my session. I've gotten a lot better, but when I first started speaking, I couldn't go to any sessions. So my first conference talk, not my meetup talk, was at Build Stuff in Lithuania. And so I went to breakfast. I was like, I can't eat. And I think my session was after lunch. So I went and holed up in my room, did like 3 run-throughs. I was like, I can't do anything. I went for a walk, and then I was like, okay, I better go find my room. So I went off to find my room. I'm going through this hotel, along corridors, following some signs for it. It's only in the underground car park in November in Lithuania. It was like -5 outside Celsius. So I don't know, like 20 Fahrenheit. And we go out there, and they've got these big heaters, and there's all these, there's blankets everywhere, and it's in an underground car park. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So there's a couple of rows of seats, and I was like, this is good. So I go up there and I stand there, and they've got all these lights on me, proper lights and heaters, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm a little bit hot now. Ooh, okay, this isn't good. And then more and more people keep coming in, and all the seats are taken, and then there's like standing room all the way around, and like there's,
oh my gosh,
and I'm like, these people are in the wrong place. What, there were, I don't know how many people were there, and I don't know, like, and I did speak rather fast on that one, and I rushed through that one, and I was like, okay, I'm out of here, and I was like, bye, and I sort of ran out of this car park, and then I had to go for an 1.5 hour walk around Vilnius to calm down and burn off that adrenaline.
Oh my gosh. But have you had it? I haven't had, well, actually I have had it. But have you had one where someone very prominent in the community is sitting in the audience and you're thinking, oh my gosh, they're going to call me out and say, you're talking nonsense?
Who did you have? Go on then.
So my one was, I was doing my source code generator talk and I had Ian Cooper in the audience. And I was thinking, Cooper! And I won't mention names, but so someone else, we were at DDD Reading, someone who talks a lot about Blazor, got a bit nervous when there was a rumour that Steve Sanderson was going to be in the audience. He has since gone on to be world renowned in Blazor, but he was quite nervous.
Yeah, Ian Cooper, one of the nicest people I've ever met on the internet. I always say this, or in person. He's going to be speaking at .NET Beyond, folks, as well. So I gave a talk with Luce Carter. We presented at NDC London, and Luce was teaching me Xamarin Live on stage. So we're in this, there's a back room at NDC London. You go through, you go up some stairs, and it's in this back room with pillars everywhere. So people are like peeping around the pillars. So it's like the tiny room out the back, you know, where they stick people. And I was like, oh, it's okay. We're in the tiny room out the back. No problem. No one will find us. Who do you think is sat in the third row? Only John Skeet, sat next to Bill Wagner. And the two of them are like having conversations. And, you know, we've sort of had a bit of audience participation. And so we had Shahid and Clifford Aegis were in the audience heckling us as well. So we're like, oh, okay. So we were there, we did our talk, and then we went off. And I was like, phew, because we asked a question, and I think it was either John or Bill answered the question, like, how did this work with something? So Whitney, if you probably won't know, John Skeet works for Google, and he is like the most prolific Stack Overflow answerer of questions ever, and he's written countless books on C# and .NET. And then Bill Wagner like heads up the documentation for .NET at Microsoft. So big wigs. So off we go, and I'm trying to find some lunch, and then Bill Wagner comes up to me. I've been looking everywhere for you. Oh, look, I've had a prop delivered. This is C# in depth, covers C# 2 and C# 3 by John Skeet. And this is a first edition. So, and when he came to speak at MK.NET, we forgot to bring this to get him to sign it. I have a funny story to tell you about John Skeet as well. Not funny, a story. So yeah, Bill Wagner comes and finds me in like the lunchroom at NDC London. He's like, I've been looking everywhere for you. And I was like, can I dive under this table? What's he gonna say? What did we do? And he's like, did you really not have any Xamarin experience before? And I was like, no, I mean, like, Luce told me what she was going to do, but no, I've never done Xamarin before. He's like, you did an awesome job. I was like, hey! Oh, and he's like, where's Luce? I was like, she's around. And I went and found Luce. I'm like, Bill Wagner's looking for you. Be careful. And it's only to say we did well. And she was really pleased with that.
But conversely, it's interesting because have you been to any talks where you've sat there thinking, that doesn't sound quite right what you're saying?
Yes.
But out of politeness, you don't say anything, because at the end of the day, we were saying about people not getting paid. Everyone who speaks, it's top respect, because everyone's doing it for the community.
Yeah.
And if someone gets something wrong, and it's interesting because John, talking about John Skeet, when he sort of starts a talk, he has a big slide saying "be kind."
Yes.
And it is because people are nervous as it is when they're giving these talks, no matter how seasoned a speaker they are. Okay. Yeah. So if you disagree with someone, yeah, maybe pull them aside afterwards and say, can you go into that bit more detail? Because that's not how it quite came across. But yeah, it's a funny one, because you might be sitting there thinking that really doesn't sound right.
I have had that, and I'm usually the person who doubts myself then.
Yeah.
And I won't ever say anything to the speaker because I think, oh, they're up on the stage. They know more about me than this. So I will go off and research it myself. And then I'll be like,
Mm.
oh, and then you think, well, maybe they didn't quite mean that. So I always err on the I'm wrong
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe that's wrong. But or maybe that's my lack of confidence and
But
things like
it's
that.
interesting that people are up on stage. I mean, we sort of joked about sort of with John Skeet or Ian Cooper or someone in the audience. But Ian Cooper, when he does his talks, he sort of says, "You could be doing this." We're all experts in it. May be a niche thing you might be an expert in, but you might be an expert. And they say that everyone's got a book in them. Well, everyone in the developer community has got a talk in them, be it an experience. Because DDD East Midlands is quite good because that's not so much a complete propeller head talks. There's a lot of being a developer type talks.
Yeah.
And it's much more soft skill focused, I think is the phrase I'm looking for.
Or human skills.
Human skill, yeah. Whereas, and it's interesting, so the talks I've given, so my first couple of talks were really technical and sort of, I've got all this information to tell you, and boom, here it comes. Whereas sort of my last talk was, I changed tack, and I've been watching people like Dylan Beatty and what have you, and there's kind of talks that they've been doing. So instead, I changed tact and went to a sort of a journeyman thing of saying, here's source code generators, but here's how we got here from like 30 years ago, and went through all the different sort of things of where I started with source code generators and then had VB and VB.NET and C# ones and all the different ones. So it was a different tact of, because it's only in retrospect when I've watched videos back of myself, it's this sort of fire hose of information coming at you, and unless it's recorded, you're going to miss half of it.
Yeah. You see, I have always really struggled with those human talks because I feel if I give a talk on an objective subject, it's right or wrong. And
Yeah.
I don't always feel comfortable with opinion pieces. And so I think you're very brave to have gone more down there, and it's been really successful. And it's really, I like these stories because so many talks are just a regurgitation of documentation. I've seen some pretty, like, I don't want to say anyone's talk is not great because I do know it takes a lot to get up on stage, but I have seen some talks over the past 2 years from so-called professionals, not community members, and I've gone, did you just copy and paste the documentation on there? And I feel a little bit sad about that because I think that there's nothing I can get from that I can't get from reading it. I think it's interesting when you start drawing from different sources to bring it together. Like you do a little bit of research here, a little bit of research here, and you bring it together. And that's the beauty that you can bring to a talk, or you work through a demo of something that is off the documentation, but you show it in practice. I think that's great. But I've seen a few where it's a slide with point 1 from the docs, point 2 from the docs, and it's a little bit, you just think, like
sometimes though, and this was where I started with the configuration talk that I was my first sort of proper talk, was developers don't always read documentation. Keep it a secret. Developers documentation. And I was guilty of that when in .NET Core 2 or whatever, I started playing around with configuration, and I hadn't read the documentation, and I was doing dependency injection, and I didn't know this bit about the iOptions bit. And I thought, how are that many other people fall into that trap? Because I was doing dependency injection, give me my configuration thing. No, that's
you need the iOptions pattern. Yeah,
it's the iOptions pattern. I have to have an iOptions of this, and then I sort of went down this rabbit hole of, but I don't want to carry iOptions all over the place. I just want my thing. And then I sort of dug in, and that's when the lightning talk started, and then I sort of expanded that out, and here's all this whole world of configuration. And then this is how it's so much better in .NET Core than it was in .NET Framework with web config and what have you. And here's how you
all about that.
Web config.
Yes,
Evil.
not fun.
And that's when I sort of expanded it out into things like, well, how do you bring solid principles into this? How do you look at the Gang of Four patterns and start? And suddenly this little germ of an idea of, I went wrong on this and I think people need to know about it, suddenly explodes into an hour-long talk.
That's great. I love that because it's organic and you followed a story and you can retell that story.
Yeah.
I think that's really insightful, Steve, actually, for people who want to start to talk, and it can break down those barriers as well, you know. And I guess that's how your source generation talk came around, because you started with a little a little gem, and then you're like, well, I can expand it backwards for 30 years and forwards and weave that story like that. And I think that's really powerful and could help people get started with talks.
Because also, I think I was listening to Jeffrey Palermo's Azure DevOps podcast, and he says that a significant chunk of the developer community it's either 7 or 5 or less years experience. So we've just had 20 years of .NET, 20 years of C#. So people coming in up there.
Here.
I'm doing it. You. I'm just going to do that. Do my staying alive. So there's 15 years of history as to why on earth would you be doing something like so pre-link, pre-generics. I saw Mark Rendell has just done a blog post for 20 years of .NET, and he triggered me within the first thing, talking about array lists and hash tables before we had generics, and having to box and unbox stuff, and I've forgotten all that.
I've only recently learned about hash tables because I've been working with a teammate who's teaching me some Java, and I'm like, so you got this hash, is that like a kind of dictionary? And like, yeah, but we had all of our stuff in there. And I'm like thinking, do you not have generics? Not like you have them. And I'm like, okay.
But what is also interesting though is there's some good bits of C# that we've all forgotten about. So things like custom delegates, because we've got func and action now.
Yeah.
The old declare a delegate has fallen out of fashion, but there are still some uses for it. And it's sort of bringing in, and did you know about this? And did you know you could use a delegate instead of if you've got an interface with just one function on it, why not just use a delegate? And suddenly it sort of snowballs into, you could do this kind of stuff and save yourself writing a lot of boilerplate code.
Yeah. I'm just going to find Mark's blog post so we can share it, because I didn't see that. Oh, here we go. I've got it. I'd love to read that as well. I didn't see that. Let me go and share that with folks. There you go, everybody. So I think that'd be really interesting. I mean, I don't use delegates enough, but yeah. So what else did you find in that then, Steve?
So I'm just trying to think of other, because when you've got just say the last 5 years, it's easy to forget all this sort of stuff, and some stuff that may not make sense. So there's been this big hoo-ha. Have you seen the big hoo-ha on Twitter about the bang bang operator?
Oh God, I've been trying to like not. So I uninstalled Twitter from my phone. Okay, because I was like, I need Layla time, and so I was looking at this and I was like, is this some kind of joke? And then I was like, people are kicking off about this, and I'm like, ew. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, that ew just yes, carry on, Steve. Yes, I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about.
But
Yes.
it's interesting. But I was listening to I'm just trying. I think it was it Jared Parsons came on the language design community stand up. I think this was, when was it? It was one day last week, and sort of said, these are the reasons we're doing this, and everyone's entitled to an opinion on it. And so certainly at first I thought, why are you putting those exclamations on the variable rather than on the type? But then when you look into it and dig it, these people aren't silly. There's strong reasons why they're doing this stuff. And I think it's interesting that because the community can jump on something. So it's very hard to sort of be as far as so I sort of just put a thing as sort of saying, well, I'm a bit confused by why that's done, but I think it's generally a good thing. But other people were vehemently, this is making C# too complicated, and it's interesting about saying that you've got people who are only sort of been developing for say 5 years. Where do you put a mature language like C# that's been around for 20 years? How do you keep it current and doing lots of things that old folk like me can sort of keep interested and go, oh, that's really cool, without losing people coming new into it? So they're doing things like the top level statements and what have you to make it easy to ramp up.
Yes.
Now.
More like Node and JavaScript. Yep.
But languages evolve. But I think a lot of comments that people were making were things like, but this is why people jump over to sort of newer languages like Go and Rust and all these things, because they're still developing and they might be taking a different tack on things.
And this is it. I'm just trying to look for, I saw the tweet where it was in the GitHub thing, and everything is about 20 years of .NET right now. I was just trying to find it in case people didn't know about the Bang Bang.
So the background to it was Stephen Taub, I think, did a PR where lots of stuff in the SDK got changed. And the point that Jared was making was that PR was done because they were dogfooding it themselves before. Oh, I've frozen.
You're frozen, Steve.
I've frozen.
You're frozen. Let me turn your camera off and on again and see if that sorts it.
I'm back. I'm back. I've lost my greens. I've lost my screen. Oh no, this could be dangerous. People capturing me with a green screen.
You've seen what happens to me.
I saw what happened to you. I was tempted to put you in the Houses of Parliament and say later for PM.
Could you imagine? I wouldn't be that terrible, would I? Let's say. I found the GitHub for the Bang Bang operator. See if you can turn it on again, Steve.
Let me.
I can't have the green screen tab ticked. By the way, I have to say I don't have a green screen, even though I do.
I'll do that. An error occurred trying to create your green screen effect.
Yep, that's the problem. So there's been a little bit of an
turn that
issue.
off and try that. Does it let me do that? No.
Yay! Hello, Napalm. Just joined in time to put Steve somewhere odd.
I could go to the moon.
You could be on the moon. You could be, for sure. And this feels terribly unfair. So Steve came on before the show and I was like, oh, your background is amazing. And I made Steve send me over this amazing background that he made. And now I've got it and you haven't. Sorry, that was rather evil of me. Yes.
So yeah, we were saying about the Bang operator.
Yes.
Yeah. But I was listening to Jamie Taylor's .NET Core podcast show, and he had, I think the guy's name was Mark Price on there, and he was sort of saying that when new stuff comes along, embrace it, because the whole Bang Bang thing, it came about from nullable reference types back in C#8, I think. But they didn't have time to do it in C#8 and C#9. So it's been fermenting and fermenting in the background, and now it's hopefully coming along in C#11. Personally, I think it's great because I wrote a blog post, and you got a mention on it actually. Because talking of Jamie, you were on his podcast.
Yes.
And happened to mention that about sort of checking for nulls and dependency injection. A lot of people going, you don't need to check for nulls from dependency injection. Dependency injection will blow up. And I'm going, that's not always the case, because you can do things in dependency injection that will resolve to a null, and you could get a null in. So it's always good practice to check for nulls. And also, people might not necessarily spin that up through DI.
Yeah.
So I think it's the same with this whole checks for nulls, because the whole nullable reference type is a nice compiler syntactic sugar thing, and things that don't necessarily support that can still. And the worst one is things like reflection. I don't think reflection necessarily checks it. So ergo, things like JSON deserialization may not necessarily check for these nulls and what have you. So suddenly it sort of snowballs, and you do need to check for nulls. So I think, yes, it's a bit of syntactic sugar, but I quite like this whole sort of bang bang. It saves me a bit of typing boilerplate code.
But I think when you look at it, so this is it, folks. Let me zoom in just so you know what we're talking about. I would agree that what Napalm says here is that the readability isn't so great. But I think it's once we tune into what this means here that we'll understand it. Now, if we go, it says throwing with bang bang where possible, and argument null exception dot throw if null where bang bang isn't possible. So what I'm seeing here then is that if we have the bang bang operator, will that, if it is null, is it going to throw an argument null exception? Is that what we're understanding from it?
Yeah.
So I think it's about, this is very explicit. You know, if you come to it, you can read it. It's very human readable. If argument is null, throw a new argument null exception, name of arg. Okay, so it's really readable. If you're coming to this, it's not nearly as readable. So I guess it's it can almost be gatekeeping, that you know this exact syntax. I mean, this will still work, but I think you'd have to understand what is happening with this. And for a newer developer, that is not nearly as understandable as this. And I think that's my problem with stuff like this, is the new developer. I think for, experienced developers like you, I want to throw a null exception, pop that in. But I think we could have a lot of developers who are learning from looking at other people's code, and they see this bang bang and they have no idea. Well, I always put this bang bang, and then they don't know why it's not working, So I think there's.
Well, I'm just waiting for some cheeky so-and-so to do a pull request and try and take it all out and go bang bang, you're dead. Boom boom.
But you've got me on that one. I like that one though, Steve. I don't know what to say, but I like it. You've kind of thrown me with that, but I do like it. I can see that Copperbeardy here has said, I'm sure that in the past the same was said about the double and the double pipe for and or. And I can see that. And Napalm has kind of echoed what I've said, but it's not very newcomer friendly. And that I think that's the thing. Whereas, like, we're trying to go more newcomer friendly. That's what the top level statements are for. And then we throw in something like this bang bang operator, which seems like the polar opposite of this nice, friendly, you don't need all this bump, straight into it. Hey, beginners, we love you. And then you're like, bang bang. You're like, I don't know. Or maybe it's just like, yeah, that's great. I don't have to write this extra 4 lines of code. I don't know what it is,
But it's interesting as the language evolves. So was it C#9? I think it was. There was the pattern matching for null. So previously we did if X equals null, or X bang equals null, not equals. But that was, you can override the equals on that. So therefore, someone could actually twist what it's doing. Whereas the pattern matching of is, if X is null, if X is not null, it's much more explicit, and the compiler will genuinely check it's null. So, and there was a bit of pushback on that as well. So I think it's an evolution, and it keeps rolling. But I totally get that as a newcomer. What's this? I mean, I'll put my hand up. I can barely read JavaScript. I just find it really three equals.
Who's written it?
Three equals. What the hell's that all about?
You just, whatever we have, you just add an extra one on.
Yeah,
that's all. That's what I go with. I love the is and as. I think they're really really nice language features. But I've been trying to ignore this whole bang bang thing and just let the dust settle, because you can
I mean, it'll come out in the wash. I mean, we've still got a few months before it'll sort of goes live. I'd be very, very surprised if they pull it. I'd be very surprised.
I guess it's optional. You don't have to use it. You can still use the is null and throw argument.
I guess it's your point about readability. If someone's new coming to it and going, what's this bang bang thing? What's it doing? So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
I think this is an interesting question from Thindle. He's now home. Good, nice and safely home. I don't mind the top level statements. Now, the global usings, I really like these, but I see a fault, Steve. And I'll see what your thoughts are. So with global usings, folks, if you're not sure about those, basically, rather than having a whole load of using statements at the top of every C# file, you have them globally available, a little bit like, I guess, npm install globally. They're global for everything. And it's turned on in the CS proj. You have a tag that you can enable or disable this global usings feature. Sounds good, okay? And I love how clean my CS files look. But I think every template that's using this should come with a global usings.cs file or whatever you're going to do. Because the other day I was doing stuff and I was like, I don't actually know what the global usings are in this. They're just like, they're in the global usings. But I'm like, I don't know if I can find them. And then I was like, okay, well, I want to add this other using, and it added it as another global using, but it didn't. When I added the NuGet package, it didn't add it anywhere. It was just one of the ones that could be a global using. And I'm like, I don't know where this is. Whereas when I'm adding in non-Microsoft usings or other NuGet packages, I've created a global usings.cs and I've put global using whatever the NuGet package is, Newtonsoft JSON or whatever. But what I found the other day was I went and added a NuGet package, and straight away it was available as a global using, but I didn't add it as a global using. And I was like, that's kind of confusing.
Well, I got tripped up because I think this was still in one of the release candidates for .NET 6. Got a code base that's written in .NET 5 and thought, as an experiment, I'll just see if I can port it to 6. And it fell on its backside because it brought in System.io as a global using. And we just happened to have an entity called file info. There was nothing to do with System.io file info. And all of a sudden, it exploded because that was overriding R1.
Which is exactly what Thindle has said there. There's a risk for collisions. And it is, I just wish that I don't want to disable them all. I'd like them global usings, but I wish that they include what is in this global usings as a global usings.cs. I think rather than this magic. I don't even know where they are. I don't know anything like where to find them.
Is there something in CS Proj? I haven't played around with it too much.
So there's a tag in CS Proj where you can turn it on and off.
Right. Okay.
But the actual, now when you've got a template and it includes the SDK, you don't even have the NuGet packages as included packages on the CS Proj. You have no includes on your CS Proj, yet you've got like half a dozen NuGet packages included, and you're like, where are they coming from? Where are they listed? What is going on?
So Thindle's saying, I think they're in a CS file with something like global using system.
So I've put that in manually, but when I spun up a new template the other day, there's no global using .cs file that I could find. They're just their magic. I'll have to have another look. But yeah, I couldn't find them. Maybe it's hidden. Maybe it's in a bin. I don't know. It's not obvious.
Interesting. Curious. Yeah. Curiouser.
Yes.
Yeah. And perhaps it's source generated. Who knows?
Yes. So where are you speaking about your source generation code again?
So I think next up, I've got, .NET Knots in May, I think.
Right.
So that'll be a virtual talk, but otherwise it's a bit quiet at the moment. So I'm open to offers if anyone wants me to do virtually.
We'll have to see what's coming up. Do you travel abroad, Steve, or do you not go to ones abroad? Do you like just to stay in the UK?
I haven't applied to any of the ones abroad yet. I think I was just getting my nerve up to when the happening happened.
The happening. The after times.
In before times, I was getting my nerve up. I was traveling around the UK, and then things happened.
Well, look at that. Thindle says source generators are really cool. Black magic. Yeah. So source generators, are we talking about? That's not T4s, is it?
No. So T4s were a type of source generator, but T4s were very much a Visual Studio technology. Whereas in .NET 5 and beyond, we've now got a way of generating code at compile time, and you can sort of it all weaves in to the compiler pipeline. So what you can do is either via NuGet or through another project, you can say, I want to make use of this. So a typical example may be you want to do something with enums. Now, I think Andrew Locke has got a really good blog post he's done recently about writing, because enum2 string, the performance of that uses reflection, and it's really poor. Whereas he's done a source generator version that can do it much more efficiently. Even Microsoft are dogfooding it themselves. So in system text JSON, in .NET 5 world, it's reflection based. In .NET 6, you can now set a couple of parameters where you can say either I want the serializer to be code generated and it will create a model and everything for you, or you can say the deserialization. So instead of having to reflect through all the properties or what have you, it sort of says, I'll just put this in here, put this in here, put this, or you could do both or turn it off altogether. You've got things like attribute-based logging. So instead of having to write a load of boilerplate code, you can put some attributes and say, I want to log this. What was interesting was on the 20th birthday thing, David Fowler mentioned they're now bringing source generation to regex. So
I did see something with him and Hanselman about regex.
Yeah. So in Framework and previous versions of Core, regex, it's either it builds MSIL on the fly for you, or you can set a couple of flags and say compile it and cache it in memory, or compile it and save it to disk. Whereas now in 7, I think the preview of 7 is coming out Thursday, I think.
Right.
There's now going to be stuff about being able to source generate it, so it'll be part of your code rather than all this MSIL stuff. That's just coding voodoo Copperbeard he has got on there.
Yes. I'm like, I'm trying to see, have I inadvertently used source generation now? Because I've done quite a lot with system.text.json and things. And
So unless you've set some parameters on it, probably not.
okay, then I haven't.
If just copied code from sort of .NET 5 world, no, you haven't. You have to go and set a couple of properties that says I want to do this special behavior. Where you may have used source generation, but not source generators in terms of those C# ones, is in consuming Swagger and getting C# clients out of Swagger files. So this goes back quite a way, even back to, dare I say it, .NET 1.0. So when you said I want to consume this web service, you had the WSDL-exe thing, and it could go and spit out C# code for you to go and do all the client stuff. So that was very much design time stuff.
Yeah.
Coming bang up to date now, we've now got a tag you can put inside your C# project called Open API Reference, and under the bonnet, that's come using a library called NSWAG by Rico Suter, and that can read an Open API /Swagger file. You can set various parameters on it, and it will spit out all the C# you need to go and consume that API. So you may well have done and not known about it.
Oh, secret stuff. You know what? I feel like we need source generation, and I think that what I learned Spring does this is for testing, and that you don't have to go and do all of this sort of magic setup when you do a mock of that. It magically makes it all for you.
So Jason Bock, who does a talk on source generators, has created a library. I think it's called Rocks, and does just that. He's using source code generation to go and write your mocks or fakes for you. Bear with me 1 second. I will see if I can find the link.
I am listening.
Hold on. GitHub. See if I can find it. Right. I'm going to have to put it in private chat to you, Layla, and then you can share it.
That's fine. There it comes, folks, coming in. Right. And I'm just going to pop that in my private chit chat to myself as well, so I can go and investigate it later. So I use notes to myself in Slack.
So I mean, there's lots of great talks out there about source code generators. So Jason Bock's been doing quite a few talks the last couple of years. Stefan Poltz, I think he's doing one at NDC London. I think he did it at NDC Oslo. I can't think. Martin Ulrich, I think possibly. I can't remember his name, but he does good. So there's lots of people talking about source code generate, and it's very much a topic to watch for, because in my talk I say what's coming in the future, and we've got all these things like GitHub Copilot, IntelliCode, which is trying to guess ahead of you what you're going to type, and then you've got things like these. I think it's OpenAI, which
GPT-3,
and they've got a demo on their website where you type stuff in natural language, saying draw a circle, now shrink it, now make it bounce, and it's generating JavaScript on the fly from all this natural language stuff. And then you've got things like NVIDIA did Pac-Man just by training an AI model by watching about 50,000 games of Pac-Man. And they said, there's no game engine to this. This is all, we might be out of a job.
Well, this is it. When GPT-3 came out, at my last job, I got special access to that beforehand. And like in an all hands, in an internal meeting, someone did a quick demo and they with GPT, and they wrote in natural language like, build me a website that has this, this, and this. And it made a website with CSS and HTML and spat it out. And we were all like, do we need to start new careers?
I don't think we do.
I don't think we do either.
But then again, you see things like SpecFlow that can take a kind of natural language, a very formulated language, but you can then apply templates to it to start writing things like unit tests for you that you can then write code against. So these things are building and building and building.
I've not heard of SpecFlow. It's kind of scary, although I keep getting annoyed with my IntelliCode on Visual Studio. No, I don't want to write that. No, I don't. Stop putting words in my mouth. Oh, actually, I did want that one. Can I have that one back, please?
Yeah. Do you reckon they're going to bring back Clippy into Visual Studio? Showing my age.
I think it would be entertaining.
Yeah.
I mean,
you appear to be writing a singleton pattern. Can I help?
You're doing it wrong.
Are you using Lazy T?
Oh my goodness. I like all those things in JetBrains Rider, and they have all cool, quirky stuff. There's one that will, it gives you some weird Japanese phrases every time you build it, and it shouts at you encouragement. So I think Clippy in Visual Studio could be quite the thing. They added a Clippy emoji. So they have, Thindle, they have. It looks like you're trying to create an ML model. And I missed some chat there, folks, as well. We had, what did we see? We had, I don't know what some of those are. There was SOAP. I do know what SOAP is. ASMX. That's sound,
ASMX. Yes.
Is that? Oh, I'm thinking ASMR, which is the
no.
ASMX. Yes.
The original SOAP services in .NET 1.0. Oh, such a long time ago.
I didn't do .NET when I started with like late 3s, early 4s. So I was that far along. So I started properly with like 4 point something. And when you said WSDL, a chill went down my spine. What's WSDL?
WSDL. Web Service Description Language. So think Swagger for SOAP, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
And SOAP pointed to a URL, get an API like the Swagger thing you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a simpler time, a more civilized time with XML specs. Is this what you lot are all going to start reminiscing over? When I was 20.
SOAP was never, ever simple. It may have stood for Simple Object Protocol, whatever it was, Simple Object Access Language, or whatever. I can't even remember. It's so long ago now. There was nothing simple about SOAP.
No, and now we got go to 100.
Now that's my kind of, that's where I started. Good old Sinclair Basic on the ZX Spectrum. 20 go to 10.
Silicon Orchid did as well, I think. He did that. Well, he started with like typing things in off the magazines or something. My very first programming experience was with ActionScript and Flash. There you go. That
but I'll tell you what, I will post a link. I will post you a link.
Oh, look, you're getting some proper love now, Steve.
They love me even more when people open this link. My first published program for the ZX Spectrum in your Sinclair, 1989. And guess what it was? It was a source code generator. Data Banker 2.
Oh my goodness.
I've just put it to you in private chat, Layla.
Thank you. So Thindle, you'll have to do some programming on your Twitch stream with your ZX. That will be entertaining for folks. So I'm dropping that link in now. It's coming. And let me give Thindle a shout out now as well. So if you're watching on YouTube, these shout out links are for Twitch, folks. So sorry about that. There we go. Thindle says I should. I have it composite converted and connected to my capture card. You see, so Thindle and Steve, you two could do a co-stream.
We could do a ZX, because I've just finished reading the book, The Computers That Built Britain, and it was all the home computers of the 1980s. And lot of love for the old retro computers. I've got Fuse, the ZX Spectrum emulator running on my PC. I had to do that to fire up my own program.
This is what I think I started with. I remember having a BBC at school. We had 4 of them in a room, and we used to get, if it was a rainy lunchtime, we got to go and play this text adventure game on it on the BBC. And it was like, oh, you've come to a river, you can cross the bridge or you can turn right and walk along it. That's all I basically remember, because we were so slow at it. It's like, right, time's up, we got 20 minutes at a time. You can't play much of a text adventure game in 20 minutes. So I'm seeing a co-stream now with Steve and Thindle.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, but I will reveal from behind the screen.
Oh, yes, let's see.
Hold on.
Look at that.
40 years old. Everyone's saying 20 years of .NET, 40 years of the ZX Spectrum this year.
I think, Steve, now, here you are. You're on Twitch. You're doing superbly. I think we've now found a new hobby for you, Twitch streaming, but with your ZX.
Problem is, it's up in the loft, and I've been looking for one on eBay, yeah, and lots of people are saying, yeah, if you get it out your loft, probably the capacitors will probably explode when you first plug it in, because they weren't built to last.
So your first stream is going to be, once you brought it out the loft, you're going to be getting your soldering iron out and replacing the capacitors.
Oh gosh, I'll just use the emulator. Yeah, Thindle's got mine recapped as 2. Yeah, all capacitors replaced. Yeah.
There you go. So yeah, I'm going to be a nag now. I'm going to be getting Thindle to chase after you, and I want to see this happen. So
I'm gonna have to read this again. I haven't touched that for 30 years.
I don't see a problem with this. I see this as being epic content.
Retro Man.
There's your Twitch handle now. Forget Steve Talks. Well, it could be Steve Talks Code, the Retro Man Show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So,
but I told you later at the start, I'm too shy. I'm too shy.
So Thindle says that he's shy as well. So 2 shies make 1 not shy person. There you go. So
throwing my 80s reference there. see, people won't come to me for quality jokes.
It's fine. I have Whitney on my stream normally, and Whitney has 3 jokes. And that is it. So we have Flailing About in Nostalgia with Steve Collins. There you go. That's a good one. You have no say in this, says Thindle. You're doing it. There we go. We're bullying you.
There you go.
I'm going to try and find this image. I can't open it from in here. I have to go and find it somewhere. I can't get to it easily right now because I can't click on the stuff in the chat. So I don't think I can. So no, see, I can't do it. I tried. I can't see the image, Thindle. So
I'm just going to look at it in a browser just to see what it is out of curiosity now.
You could share if it's safe, which it should be from Thindle. You can share your screen, Steve.
Oh, he's got his Spectrum Plus there. I don't think I can share my screen. No, I can't. But it's a picture of a ZX Spectrum sitting in front of us with his Spectrum manual.
Fantastic. Nice one. So if you are on YouTube, that is the link that you can go and check to see Thindle's one. Thindle, you can send it to me so I can have a look, because I can't get to that link very easily right now. So Steve, can you believe we've almost come to the end of our show? We've just been like blah 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 blah. It's been
I told you I could talk for England.
I know, and it's lovely. So what do you think is going to happen for the next 20 years? Oh, I've got the link. Shall I show it? Hang on, just while you're thinking about that. Here we go. Oh, it's you and me, I see. And Thindle's got that book and right there, and the Spectrum. Hang on. I'm going to share it so everyone can see, especially those folks over on the tubes. I can share. You can think of a response now, Steve, now that I've put you on the spot. There we go. So I look like I'm even looking down at it. There we go. Thank you very much, Thindle, for sharing that. Look at your Stream Deck XL as well. Or is that two of them? I don't know. Very fancy.
Very impressive.
So, yes. So, do you, I mean, I don't have any answers to this.
I haven't got a clue. I'll be retired by then. That's the frightening
thing. You think you'll be
20 years time, unless the government keep pushing the retirement age up, I will be retired. I'm old. I am. I'm old. I've got the grey hair to prove it.
That doesn't make you old. I first got grey hair when I was like 16. So the hardships of having dark hair. So that means
actually, this could be the hardships of having twin teenagers.
Yeah, you have told me about your twin teenagers, and I think they would turn anyone's hair white. I don't know what I can answer. I don't know if we'll still be programming in 20 years, or will we have been taken over by all this AI? Will we have reached the singularity, or whatever it's called?
It'll be computer. Make it so.
Yes. It will
read we will think of something, it will read our minds, and you just say, make it so, and it will be done.
Make it so. I like that. And
as long as it writes unit tests for us, that's the main thing.
That's it. Yes. As long as we make it so. With unit tests. Or I'll unplug you. Done. Sorted. Well, you can threaten it. Well, I guess on that, make it so.
That bombshell. On that bombshell.
Oh my God, that was a very good impression, Steve. Jeremy Clarkson, in case you don't get our references there, folks. For at the end of Top, well, do they still do that on the Grand Tour? Or is it only on Top Gear?
I don't know. It was definitely a Top Gear thing, wasn't it?
It was definitely a Top Gear thing. Yeah. I do miss Top Gear.
Yeah.
We can choose where we're going to go next, Steve. So I'm going to bring up the old Twitcheroos. And we can see who is live, and we can see who we can go next. And chat, if you have any suggestions, you're welcome to share them. But Steve gets to pick as the guest.
Okay.
So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Yeah. So we have lots of people doing our Click software development. There's us. There's us there. Maybe that's limited it too much. Let me go down. So we've got Jeff Fritz is doing some stuff. We've got, what have we got? We've got some Russian, maybe. Yes, Russian.
What's Zig Docs? Compiler dev.
Let's have a look. We can go and have a quick look here. Zig Software Foundation. So I don't know what they're doing.
Heard of it. That looks very JavaScripty.
It does look JavaScripty to me. So let's come out and have a look. We've got quite a few game devs. We've got some Godot coming on over here with Jackie Codes. There's a lot of people on today.
Back up.
Yeah.
Live Coding Blazor session.
with one line. Yes, one. Oh, is One Line live at the moment, or is he doing? He's working with Andrew. He might not actually be broadcasting at the moment. He's looking out his window.
Ah, right, okay.
So One Line broadcasts Monday to Friday and does like the whole day of Blazer. Lovely streamer to watch there, folks.
Okay.
So
shall we go with our friend C Sharp Fritz?
Why not? Let's go on.
I think he was right at the top.
And alrighty, so I will set that up. Steve, any lasting thoughts about
Wow, so I gave you my lasting thoughts.
What? Because it will take another hour to go through.
Another hour to give you all my lasting thoughts. Can I will just do a quick plug.
Go for it.
So we talked about lightning talks. .NET Oxford have got lightning talks starting in 3/4 of an hour. So they can be found on Meetup. So if you're interested in sort of lightning talks and what's involved, might be worth swinging past Meetup and have a talk to them. Quick plug for myself, stevetalkscode.co.uk at stevetalkscode. Steve gets streaming Git. Is he talking about source control or just calling me a Git?
I don't know. I'm not going to go into that one. URL. Okay, what was that?
stevetalkscode.co.uk.
.co.uk. And what was your other one?
So on Twitter, I'm at Steve Talks Code,
which we have. If I go here and stick this on, there you go. It should pop back up. I think. No, it's not coming. Nope. It's not. So at Steve Talks Code on the old Twitters, folks.
Yeah.
And I am going to say that. Oh, there we go, Steve. That it's up there. I am going to say that Thindle suggested Code Rushed. So I'm going to say maybe we should go and raid Code Rushed because he's got far fewer viewers than Fritz. So we can give him a little bit of a boost, and he has the most amazing effects. So we can go and give him a raid. Thank you, Thindle. And unless you want to go for it, like.
No, I'm happy to go with that.
I'm giving you because, like, I'm getting told that our Steve picks.
I'm happy. It was only because I couldn't see that many C-sharpy type ones when we were scrolling through.
So let me go and set this up. We're having some problems recently with doing the raids. I have to go and do them from inside.
Hold on, Thindle's asking about that meetup. Let me just see if I can.
Have you got the links?
Put the link in for it. Hold on. I'll have to post it to you later if you can.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's the meetup for .NET Oxford.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I'll drop that in, folks. So there's some plugs. Go follow Steve. Go harass Steve into doing some streaming.
No.
You can come do some streaming with me, Steve. You're always welcome. You know that.
Okay.
And I'll ease you in nice and gently. You'll be all right. We're a nice bunch. So I'm going to kick off the raid then over to Code Rushed. And I want to say just a huge thank you, Steve. It's been an absolute joy to have you on. As always, we can chat about stuff for a long time. We will see you all. There's a break next week, folks. And then I think I'm back the week after. I can't remember who I have on the week after. Should I have a quick look? I can't find it quickly. Well, go check Tanzu developer site. I can't remember who's on in 2 weeks. It's out of my head. And we're going to go raid. And so, yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Oh, I have found it. I have found who's next. Hang on. I'm there. I haven't put it on the website. That's why. So I will put it on the website and let you all know. So, yeah, I think we're ready to raid if I can find the right button. And I'm going to press raid. All right. So, cheerio,
Bye-bye.
folks.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
My pleasure. And we're still here. I've pressed a button now, and I need to go and do this here.